What is up, SVSers, and welcome to the 71st edition of the SVS Audiophile Happy Hour. I know, can you believe
Yay.
that?
Awesome.
I'm Nick, your host, and of course, I'm joined by my colleagues here. We have the Larry, our national training manager. I can't get that right.
It throws me off every time too.
The right of me. How are you doing tonight, Larry?
I'm good. I raced back from South Texas. Had a flight got delayed, so I was like, forget it, and just jumped in my rental car, and instead of coming back via flight, just drove it, and I beat that flight home.
Good. Well, we teased your barbecue meal last night, so you have to give us a quick recap.
Yeah, I won't be talking about it, I assure you.
Oh, okay. Well, that bad. Yeah. Okay. And of course, we have Ed Mullen, our Director of Technology and our Sage Wizard of AV, right below me. How are you doing, Ed?
Doing well. Recovering from COVID. Finally got me.
Oh, well, man.
It sounds like you got a little more bass in your voice, so I don't know what that says, but
yeah, a little bit hoarse, but I'm here and I'm happy to be part of the happy hour.
Glad you're recovering. And of course, we have our president, Gary Yakubian. Gary, how are you this evening?
Living the dream. So happy to be with the SVS community. I am very stoked for a happy hour. We've been working very hard today. We're working on a lot of interesting new stuff. So I would love to share with the SVS community, but I'm not allowed. Nick won't allow me. But we got some fun stuff coming down the pike.
Well, we have a very active crowd here in the comments. Love to see that, and a lot of energy and excitement around our special guest this evening, which we will get to in just a little bit. But as we do every happy hour, we do have some giveaways. And Larry, I didn't really spring these on you before, so am I doing these or are you?
Yeah, you are. I can tell you that we do have 3 giveaways, and Nick is about to tell you about each of them because.
All right. Well, just to say, anyone who's leaving a comment right now is eligible for these fantastic giveaways. All you got to do is leave a comment. 1 comment gets you an entry. If you leave 1 million comments, you don't get 1 million entries, but have conversations, banter with each other. That's totally encouraged. But again, 1 entry per person. And our prizes this evening are, first will be a pair of the Prime Wireless Pro powered bookshelf speakers. Second will be our SP1000 Pro sealed cabinet subwoofer. And then as our finale for the evening, we're going to do a pair of our Ultra bookshelf speakers. And something that we'll be talking about in a minute here, they'll be paired with our brand new SoundPath Ultra by-wire speaker cables. So expect a little bit of talk about by-wiring and speaker cables tonight, which I know is pretty much the most riveting thing you can cover when it comes to the world of audio.
So exciting.
So if you're not on the edge of the seat already, then that will certainly take you there. And we have some other cool things to discuss too before we bring on our guests. But let's stick with what we typically do here and talk about some of the either live musical events or other things we've been into. And Larry, I'm going to start with you. You've been on the road, but what you been watching, listening to recently?
Yeah, I've been on the road, and last week I was in New York and New Jersey, and I actually kind of took advantage of that. I normally don't do stuff like that when I travel, but I got to see a few bands. I went to a metal concert last Monday. It was Ice Nine Kills, Avatar, New Year's Day, and In This Moment. And everyone other than In This Moment was absolutely amazing. One of the most fun experiences ever at a concert. Metal concerts, I highly recommend. Everyone should go do it at least once. Then I went to see the Knicks in Madison Square Garden on Tuesday night. Never been there. It was really cool getting to walk around there. As far as watching, saw Invasion Season 1. And then Sunday had the best experience at the movie theater all year, seeing Godzilla -1.
Okay.
And I can't give that a high enough recommendation for you all to go see.
Come on, really?
Future demo content, it sounds like it might be.
Totally.
Yeah. Absolutely. Good workout for the subwoofers. Ed, you've had some time to rest and recuperate, and I assume, listen and watch some things. What have you been into?
Well, binged Castlevania Nocturne, and props to them for not making it a rehash of the previous series. As a bit of a different story like that. And I'm in the middle of Blue Eye Samurai, and that has been a really interesting and pleasant surprise. And we did see Trans-Siberian Orchestra in concert before I got sick, and that was pretty good too. It's kind of like metal, Christmas, I guess. It was awesome. Damn loud though, and I'm not really a fan of ultra loud concerts because I think they hurt your hearing. But
Was that in like a acoustically tuned auditorium, or what kind of venue?
it was in the, we call it the War Memorial, but it's the big, one of the large venues in my town. They brought all their own gear and hung their horn loaded speakers and everything from the ceiling. It sounded good, and it was a great light show and lasers and everything like that, but it was too loud for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And Gary, what about you?
Well, I didn't know I was allowed to talk about a live performance I saw, but yeah, and I'm kind of bereft because this is the last week I saw, or the week before last I saw Tool. I met my oldest son in Philly, who's a Tool head like me. We saw Tool at Wells Fargo, which is actually a new arena. I thought I'd been there, but I haven't. That was a really good experience. It was a lot of fun. They're playing amazingly. That band is peaking, so I totally recommend. Tool is touring, I think, through March. I would go there. You will not regret it. It is a feast for the ears and eyes. It's really cool. And I'm excited because, Larry, you shamed me into I'm going to watch Oppenheimer in 4K Blu-ray, and it's coming tomorrow. So I'm excited for that. We'll do I think my wife and I will do a date night, and maybe my kids will watch it as well. My sons are in their 20s, so I know it's a dark topic. But I think I've heard it's really well done.
It's a really great film.
Yeah, I saw it's on streaming. I may or may not watch that one, or Killers of the Flower Moon. That's one of those two will be on my weekend playlist. But I got turned on to a new band. I used to be a big Fish fan, and somebody turned me on to this new band called the Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. And they have a sort of similar vibe to them, but the name alone got my attention. So if you're into that sort of jam band vibe, when you're cleaning or cooking, baking cookies maybe for the holidays, that's some good background music to listen to. I've also watched the Barry Sanders Bye Bye Barry documentary, my favorite athlete of all time. And if you didn't love him before that, you're going to like him even more. Just a truly humble athlete, somebody who I think a lot of people wonder why he left so early, and this does a pretty good job of telling you his background story. And then our director of international sales today on one of our Zoom calls mentioned that there's a new Milli Vanilli documentary, and I was a huge Milli Vanilli fan. I used to try to dress like them and look like them back in the day, so I will be checking that out as soon as I can. And I also finished the Invasion season 1 as well. I thought it kind of slowed down at the end. There's way too much like close-up talking dialogue, but when it gets to the action, I thought it was really, really good, and it sounded really awesome in the home theater. And the last thing I'll tease, Judas Priest is coming to Wallingford, Connecticut, which is about an hour away from me. I've never wanted to see Judas Priest, but my neighbor is going, has an extra ticket. So this might be a band that I have to see live because I know how legendary they are, and I hope they can still bring it. So Judas Priest in Wallingford, Connecticut. If we have anyone in that area, look up your tickets because they're gonna sell out from what I've heard in that small venue. So lots of cool stuff coming down the pipeline.
Nice. Oh, I forgot. I how could I forget this? I saw Bob Dylan as well a couple of weeks ago actually in a concert hall, Meyerhoff Symphony Hall in Baltimore. That was actually a really cool experience, and I had seen him a couple of months before that in Chicago. You guys may remember because I did talk about it on our happy hour. And what I found fascinating is this 83-year-old legend, Bob Dylan, who definitely doesn't need the money. The show I saw a couple months later was totally different than the show I saw in Chicago. If you think about it, he's like shaking it up and reinventing himself over the course of 2 months at age 83. That is an inspiration for me.
There you go. I'm shocked to hear he's still bringing it. But kudos.
I'm not the only one who thinks so. You can pretty much every show he's doing, he's getting very rave reviews in the press. So he's definitely on his game, even at his age.
Excellent. Well, we did have a couple side announcements before we bring our guests on. The first thing I wanted to mention is a little game that this is actually the 3rd year we've done it. It's something we like to call SVS Under the Tree. And basically what this is we have a tool on our site, an augmented reality tool, which allows you... Not actually tool, but it's a tool you can use. And it's on the site, and it basically allows you to use your smartphone and see what SVS speakers and subwoofers will look like in your space to scale. So if you have furniture, or you have other room conditions, you want to kind of get a sense if a PB16 Ultra is going to fit in your bathroom or something like that, this will allow you to do that. And what we're doing with this game is essentially letting you use this, take a screenshot once you've projected whatever product it is under your tree, by the mantle. It doesn't even have to be near Christmas decor or Hanukkah decor. It can just be anywhere in your home or outside. But basically take a screenshot and then submit it to our Instagram, tag us on Instagram or on Twitter, or upload it to our owners gallery, all of which is on this landing page that you can see at the link I've included below. And then we'll be sharing a bunch of these on our next happy hour, but also giving 3 prizes away at random to folks who submit these products. A pair of our Prime Bookshelf speakers, Prime Wireless Pro, sound-based streaming integrated amp, and that says an SB1000 Pro, but it looks like a PB1000 Pro. We'll get that fixed. We'll give away a subwoofer to a 3rd lucky winner. So we really want you to have fun with this. It's a chance to bring a little fun into the industry and kind of show off the products that you would really like to earn. You can do any single SVS product. It doesn't have to be one of these 3 shown. But again, just a way to get into the spirit, and we'll have some fun. We'll put a little slideshow together, share it back out with our community. And this is the 3rd year we've done it, so we want to make it bigger than last year. And if you have products that you've really wanted to see under your tree, maybe this can be a subtle nudge to somebody in your family to let them know that it's time to go shopping.
Yeah, the images last year were a lot of fun too. So
they really were. We saw pets involved, we saw kids involved. So it's it's just a fun way for us to kind of show off what you can do, but also it's a great tool. It's a great way for you to see when you're bringing in these kind of products just how well they'll balance with the rest of the gear or the rest of the furniture and other things you have in your home. So that is the SVS under the tree. The second thing we wanted to talk about is we just had a bit of a minor product launch, and I think we might have talked about this a few months ago when we were headed to CEDIA, but we have a new product from our SoundPath accessory line, and this is our SoundPath by-wire speaker cable. So before we get into some of that, I thought maybe we'd start our evening with a little discussion about what is by-wiring and why you would want to do it and what you need in your system to actually be able to do it. And since I've been talking too much already, Ed, maybe you can kick off a little background on what by-wiring is and some of the benefits.
Well, sure. You need to start with a loudspeaker with 2 sets of binding posts. Normally they would be connected by jumpers, and you would remove these jumpers and then connect the by-wire cable from one output on your amplifier to both inputs on the loudspeaker as shown there. So again, on one side, on the amplifier side, it's just conventional 2 left and right. And at the loudspeaker, there's 2 sets.
So that is what you actually connect to it. Why in the world would you ever want to do this? What are the potential benefits of by-wiring your speakers?
What by-wiring does is essentially separate the 2 sections of the crossover when you remove the jumper strap, and it makes it more difficult for the woofer section to modulate the tweeter section. All woofers create electromotive force. We call it back EMF, and that can modulate the tweeter section and create intermodulation distortion. I don't want to get too deep into it, but
that's pretty deep. I don't know.
Yeah,
there's a lot of words there that I need to get my dictionary out for.
Ed's getting very technical, but one thing Ed showed me, and I frankly did not know this, is the benefits of by-wiring are actually measurable, which I didn't know. I thought it was something you could hear, or I felt I could hear, but not necessarily something that would be measurable. But it actually is, because of this. Basically, it limits the ability of the woofer to do interference to the overall sound of the speaker. For lack of that's my non-technical way of saying what Ed said. And it's measurable, which is really cool.
Yeah, we set up some testing, and we measured intermodulation distortion with the jumpers in, and then with the by-wire installed, and there's absolutely a reduction in IMD. with the bi-wiring. And so, under perfect conditions, it would likely be audible. Speaker would just simply sound more clear and have better imaging and better detail. And so it's a real thing. And we're excited to offer it for people who have dual binding posts on their loudspeakers and want to take advantage and maybe take their system to the next level.
And just to remind, is that okay? I'm just do a quick reminder of why we do our SVS SoundPath accessories. I mean, in general, we felt like if you're looking for an audio accessory, whether it's a cable or a speaker wire, interconnect, and other stuff that we do, we found like either you have this kind of lowest common denominator, poor performing, but very cheap solution. I won't name names, but I think everyone knows who they are. Or you have kind of these super high-end, highfalutin, very expensive, and maybe not practical choices for most of us solutions. And SVS, we thought there was an opening with our community for high performance, high quality, high technology solutions that are don't break the bank and aren't super crazy expensive. And this is just one more of those entrants in this in the SVS accessory universe. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, yep. And somebody asked, how do the speaker wires know what to split? It's not the speaker wires necessarily splitting it. The actual internal operation of the speaker is recognizing the signal coming in.
Yeah, the crossover is still doing its job. We're just we're making it more difficult for the woofer section to create negative interference with the tweeter.
I think it's an important question, though. I think actually the question is a good one. If your speaker is not bi-ampable, bi-wireable, in other words, if you look on the back of it and it only has
Nick, will you show the back of the
that's a bi-wireable, bi-ampable speaker. It has 4 connections, 2 positive and 2 negative. So typically they would be connected with sort of a jumper, either a cable or a strap that connects the 2 positives and the 2 negatives, and then you would only run 1 wire to them. You would remove the strap and basically separate the tweeter and the mid-range from the woofers and disconnect the 2 crossovers. And the benefit is measurable for doing that. Now, if your speaker only has 2 connections on the back, a positive and a negative, then there's no benefit to bi-wiring. You wouldn't want to do it. You wouldn't want to spend the money for that.
You do have to remove those jumper straps. That's imperative because you could actually damage the speakers if you do not remove them when you're bi-wiring. So important point there. But they're available on our site now. We also have a little blog here when you get to the page where if you want to really get into the whatever it was that you said there, Ed, you can read up on that.
I think there's a question here, and I'm getting scolded that we need to make sure we explain the difference. Question is bi-amping and bi-wiring, what is the difference? So bi-wiring is using a single amplifier, and you have a single point of origin at the amplifier, and then it runs to 2 pairs of cables to the 2 speakers. And you separate that, as we showed you in the diagram, you separate the 2 positive terminals from the 2 negative terminals, and you run the 2 wires off of a single amp. Bi-amping is 2 amplifiers. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. 2 amplifiers, hopefully the same amplifier. So for example, you have, I'm trying to think of a brand, and you have an NAD power amplifier. You would have 2 NAD power amplifiers. You would take those straps that connect the 2 positives and the 2 negatives, you take them off, and you would amplify the tweeter and the mid-range section with one of the amplifiers and the woofer section with another. That is bi-amping. And that's the one where you must remove the strap. Nick, you're wrong. It wouldn't damage anything if you left the strap on in a bi-wiring configuration, but you wouldn't get the benefits Ed's describing. The benefit is to remove the strap. In a bi-amping situation, you better remove the strap because you have 2 amps now.
Well, otherwise you short the 2 amps, and that's when you damage the
you don't want to do that.
So I'm looking at the comments. Did we do a good job explaining it? Is it clear? Because I think that's a very important question. Wouldn't want to confuse people.
I think the follow-up on bi-amping is you get all the benefits of bi-wiring, and you have double your power, so you have a 3 dB increase in dynamic headroom. So that's really the big jump between bi-wire and bi-amping is the additional dynamic headroom afforded by 2 separate amplifiers.
Well, that was some riveting cable talk, and actually good information for people who are, considering this. And obviously our sound experts are standing by if you have additional, more technical questions or, different brands of speakers where you want to kind of understand, what the potential benefits would be. So with that, I think we are actually due for a giveaway and to welcome our special guests. So first giveaway of the evening is our Prime Wireless Pro powered speakers. And the winner of those award-winning speakers is Lance Law. Congratulations, Lance Law.
Congratulations.
Thanks for standing by to grab your information. We'll get those shipped out ASAP, and you're going to be jamming to some carols with some Prime Wireless Pro here.
And those speakers just won the, well, I should say the Prime Wireless Pro sound base just won the affordable component of the year from Future Audiophile, which is
cool.
Audiophile side. I was very excited to see that. I mean, best audiophile value component of 2023, SVS Prime Wireless Pro sound base, which is basically the integrated amplifier version of the Prime Wireless Pro speakers. So I'm very proud of that.
Very, very cool. Well, Ed, if you don't mind, it gets a little crowded. We have 2 guests tonight. So if we end up doing a lightning round, I'll bring you back, but I'm going to put you in the waiting room there if it's cool with you. Thank you for your contributions.
Ed, thanks for coming while you're on you still have COVID positive, right?
Yeah, I do, unfortunately, but I'm getting better. Nick, I have no shortage of stuff to work on right now, so I'm totally cool with this. And if we do the lightning round towards the end, just bring me back in and we'll have fun with it.
Thanks much, Ed. Well, I'm super excited for the guests that we have tonight. I've actually known these 2 gentlemen for over a decade, from back before I even worked for SVS. And we have they now have this awesome podcast, which we'll get into a little bit. It's called Audio Unleashed. You can find it on all the podcast networks. But you're also contributors to Wirecutter, Soundstage. You've been writers for all sorts of magazines, including Sound and Vision and Home Theater Review, and the list goes on and on. So I feel like most people in our community know who Brent Butterworth and Dennis Berger are. But welcome to the SVS Audiophile Happy Hour, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. And Brent, this is your second rodeo. So, we're happy to have you on again. But I did want to first ask, like we do with all our guests, any recommendations for music or content that you've really been into recently that our community might like to experiment with? And I'll start with you, Dennis.
Ooh, wow. Okay. I have been getting really, really into an artist from North London named Dodie. Full name Dodie Clark, but she just goes by Dodie professionally. She's amazing. Kind of like sort of like a Gen Z version of like Ingrid Michaelson by way of Regina Spektor sort of thing, but she's really into polyrhythms. She's a great guitar player, and I just love her stuff. So
there you go. That's a good one. I got my note jotted down there. Brent, what about yourself?
Well, I'm delighted to hear that because I was just going through my phone looking for what I have saved to listen to, and I had an album by Dodie, and I was sitting there going like, oh God, who recommended that?
Guilty.
Now I'll listen to it. It was Dennis, so I'll be sure and listen to it right away.
There you go.
I'm listening. You know what I'm enjoying most right now? There's I found on Amazon Prime Video, there's an old, I'm not that old, maybe 10 years old documentary about the making of Star Trek going all the way back to the 60s. And it kind of takes every different, iteration of it in chunks, and they interview all the old stars and stuff. But Dennis, I thought you hated Star Trek. I thought you liked Star Wars and not Star Trek.
I mean, I don't have anything against Star Trek. I'm just not into sci-fi. You're right. I'm a Star Wars guy. I'm a fantasy guy. So
yeah. Well, they talk in there about how, Star Wars really amped up the interest in science fiction. So whatever. But
hurts my head. Fine.
We live on these trivial arguments.
We do.
But I'm also listening. There's a harpist I found out about in the K-pop magazine called Mary Lattimore, and she plays harp. She's like a classically trained harpist, but she makes kind of more experimental music, and she plays through like guitar stomp boxes and things like that. And I really like the Barbie movie, which I just saw 2 nights ago.
All right, good. So I think the question.
I think Star Wars is science fiction. How could it not be? They invented hyper space, right? I mean, that's how you beat the speed of light.
No.
And
You're
it's
going down the
science fiction.
wormhole here, Gary. Going down the
If
wormhole.
it's got magic, it's fantasy. I'm sorry. Once you get into the realm of wizards, you've left the realm of sci-fi.
But if you go back 2,000 years, some of the things we do here would seem like magic to them.
That's true. Arthur C. Clarke would agree with you. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things I love about your podcast is that you're able to poke fun at the industry, and you're able to sort of take a look that I think sometimes we take ourselves too seriously. So I wanted to ask you just bluntly: do you think the audiophile, the hi-fi, the high-end home theater world takes itself too seriously? Why do you think that is? Brent, we can start with you. Yeah, I can direct it.
I think I would say no, because audiophiles enjoy taking themselves seriously. It's part of why they do what they do. And you could say some of them take it too seriously, but they enjoy taking it too seriously. And does it ultimately matter, a lot of this stuff? I mean, some of it doesn't matter that much, but it matters to them. And it's just, there's lots of stuff that matters to me that doesn't matter to other people. And I think it's fine. I think it's great that they take it seriously.
Dennis, what would you say?
I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, I have to admit, I'm not really too worried about what other people do to get their enjoyment, right? It's just, I think if you look at the sort of the fun that Brent and I have together, and the irreverent tone and the laughter, I think that's just a function of our friendship. I think that's just who we are. I mean, we used to go on a road trip together every year, and we haven't been able to do that since COVID. I mean, it would be a few days of just laughter. We'd go off grid, we get in the car, we go somewhere, and we just entertain the hell out of each other for, hours on end. So I think that's just who we are.
I think this is one reason why your podcast is so well liked. And I'm seeing comments where people are like, it's a really good and fun podcast. But I would say both of you are really good at demystifying things about audiophiles and audio, but that doesn't mean you don't take it very seriously. That's just, I think you're willing to call BS when you feel you should.
Yeah.
It's fun seeing my kids come up in this generation. Like, somebody asked, what are you doing to get the younger generation involved or becoming an audiophile? And I think it's cool seeing my kids realize when something sounds bad, or like, man, I have a feeling we can do something to make that better. And I think that's something that, whether it's Apple Music or Spotify or a pair of powered bookshelves or a home theater or going to a movie. And like, I took my oldest to see Godzilla -1 this weekend, and it was in an inferior theater. And he called it out, and I was like, well, it was the only opportunity to see this movie. So I think it's fun seeing my kids appreciate audio, or even my wife, whenever we go to her parents' house, we're like, this sound sucks.
So I think the part that sort of annoys me is that when it manifests itself in negativity, that turns other people who may not take it as seriously off to the hobby, judgmental. Well, that's not high end, or, whatever, where it's just sort of, this sort of set of strict guidelines where, you either are or you aren't, and not leaving a lot of gray area for, like, a gamer can't be an audiophile, something like that. So that's where I sort of come at it, from. But I also understand what you guys are saying. It's like, if you're going to drop a lot of money on a system, or you're going to invest that much time in a hobby, you should take it seriously, and you should, want to get the most out of it. So, I think there's a fine line there between not being judgmental, not pushing people away, letting it be more of a social thing, but also not, taking it so seriously and obsessing over it to the point where,
well, we're judgmental.
We are very much so. Yeah.
It's like, I one thing we talk about on the show that I think a lot of people don't talk about is, we all know there are product designers in this industry that are just that have devoted their lives to building better products and to learning everything they can about their craft. And we all know there are product designers in this industry that have not, that just make up crazy stuff. That's one of the things that Dennis and I talk about a lot is, there's this notion in audio that, well, you have to hear it to know if it makes a difference, but you don't. If you understand the laws of physics, we were just talking on our latest episode, which is in edit right now. We were talking about a thing that claims to be an acoustical treatment product, but it's about the size of a Lifesavers, and just the little mint. And
I thought you were bringing up lightsabers.
What's that?
Or sci-fi.
Yeah. They should just use Lifesavers instead. But and they sell these things for hundreds of dollars for like 5 of these little things, and you can just tell from the laws of physics that that's not going to do anything. And I would say that people that don't learn enough about the field to where they fall under the embrace of products like that and manufacturers that make products like that, they would say that they're taking it seriously, but I would say they are not taking it seriously.
So I actually think that's a good segue to another topic that you guys have covered on your podcast. And I think this is very germane given Gary's here. And a lot of people may not know that Gary spent a little time with Beats. And you made the case that audiophiles don't love Beats. And I wanted to kind of hear you riff a little bit on that. And then, Gary, you've talked about this and what they've done for our industry, with headphones at least. But, maybe give us a little background on what that conversation was. And I'd love to hear Gary's response too.
I mean, I think the reality is most audiophiles don't know what Beats sound like. I mean, that's
Great
the
comment.
Problem.
Couldn't agree more.
They don't have a clue what they sound like. I mean, I'm wearing some Beats right now, and I think they're great. They sound nothing like the original Beats, but whatever. Those earphones had their audience. But yeah, I think most of the people who hate Beats have probably never heard a pair. So, or at least they heard like the originals and they've heard nothing since. That's frustrating.
So it's more the culture of Beats that they don't like.
It's the youngness of it. Yeah.
Maybe, or maybe it's just an article of faith that Beats are bad.
Anything driven by celebrities can't be good.
It's kind of like the Eagles for me. It's like I hate the Eagles more because the people I didn't like in high school liked the Eagles than that I actually really like the Eagles all that much, although I don't like them at all. But that's what really bothers me about the Eagles. And I think that Beats symbolizes like mass market, audio where you see celebrity product placements and things like that. And let's face it, the first couple generations of Beats headphones were pretty horrible. And so, and plus, I think if you're part of a group, you have to define yourself partly by who you're not, right? And so you kind of have to have something to, hate.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the aspect of
the fact
this.
that I hate the Eagles.
Yeah.
Well, I come at it more from a 30,000 foot place anyway, as you might expect from a company president. I think Beats obliterated 2 myths very, very effectively. And SVS, a lot of what we believe at SVS is also obliterating those myths. Myth number 1, which I think a lot of the audio business is premised on, is most people don't care about great sound and can't even tell.
I was about to bring that up. Yes.
And the reality is Beats sold a whole generation of people on those headphones. And if you think those people who were, the other myth is people won't pay more than the average selling price of a product. The average selling price of headphones was $16, and Beats launched a $300 headphone. And the number 1 price category for headphones was free with your phone. So, and those kids, it was mostly kids at the beginning who bought those headphones. They absolutely thought they were buying the best. Put your favorite adjective in there, your favorite adverb in there, the best gosh darn headphones on the planet for $300. And that to me was a revelation that we've built SVS on in a lot of ways. We want more people to enjoy great sound. I am not going to make the case that those first couple generations of Beats redefined how great headphones can be. I'm not going to. But I do think the people that bought them really believed in them and really thought they were getting the best headphone on the planet.
So maybe that kind of answers this next question, but given your approach to your podcast, and I think some of the language you use, even in the reviews, you especially Dennis, I think you use some really colorful and flowery language. What can our industry, I think you said, beat the snot out of in one of our reviews, and you compared another one to your pit bull and things like that, which I just absolutely love. But what does our industry need to do better to attract a younger, more diverse audience? Because I don't think anyone would say that we're, other than what we were just saying about Beats, it's doing the best job. So, what's your take on that? Is that something that, there needs to be a shift with how marketing is done, or is it more, the benefits of sound quality? What needs to be done?
We did an episode a few weeks ago called Tay-Tay and the Prince of Darkness, which was about a mastering, or actually a mixing problem with Taylor Swift's new album. And it went to prove that Taylor Swift fans are just obsessive about the sound quality of her records. And yet I think I saw a discussion today on Facebook. One of my audiophile friends posted something about Taylor Swift being, person of the year. And the audiophiles were just like tearing themselves apart to get in and demonstrate how much they hate Taylor Swift. I mean, you would think she was the Eagles or something, but I mean, if we could just recognize that just because it's not our music doesn't mean it's bad or it sounds bad, that'd go a long way toward it. I also, there's a record shop up the road from me called Classic Audio and Records. And every last Sunday of the month, they have listening parties. There's 13 and 14-year-old kids there showing up with Todd Rundgren albums, right, to play them alongside the 60-year-old dudes who are listening to, Tool or, Judas Priest or whatever. And I asked the shop owner, what are you doing to sort of help bring the young kids in the hobby? And he was like, just listen to them. Listen to what they want, right? Just ask them, what do you want in a sound system? Does this matter to you? What does matter? And he was like, us old guys learn as much from them as we learn from them, which I think is kind of a radical attitude in our hobby, but it's an important one.
Any other reactions?
Well, yeah, that Taylor Swift thing, the problem was at 15.4 kilohertz, which I would guess probably not many of us can hear too well. And I certainly can't. And, so that it shows you it's young people that found the problem. And the problem existed because the people that produced the album were old and didn't hear it. So, I think that kind of proves that young people are paying attention to sound.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And you mentioned the record store near you that does those sort of public listening. And I know we have the regional audio shows, which tend to attract, a certain crowd, and they've done limited outreach to, to younger and more diverse audiences. But, another thing you guys talked about recently was this restaurant in Miami that is doing basically HiFi nights where they have a good set of speakers in there and playing music, letting people experience it. Is this going to become a real thing? And do you feel like that's an opportunity for our industry to maybe rebrand itself a bit and make it a cool social thing as opposed to sitting by yourself in a dark room in the sweet spot? Is this something that could actually catch on?
I think it probably could. It's just, honestly, it's not like this is hard to do. Every bar has at least a bad sound system, right? And you're possibly just a few good speakers away from something good, and get some albums and something to play them on and put them up, because the albums are fantastic decor, and you automatically have a hipper environment. And I think it's going to catch on, to tell you the truth, because it's cheap to do, it's fun, it distinguishes your bar, and I just think it's a great idea.
I love it too. I mean, I think the ability, one, to engage people's love of music, which I think is at the real heart of this, is, doing a full album listening, not just we're going to play, greatest hits of the 80s, which I also think might attract people too. but you could brand it around, you know, the Beatles' White Album or something like that, and have it be sort of this nostalgia thing. What's that?
Themed nights. You know, if
Yeah.
you've got a bar that plays good music and it's got good sound, and you have a themed 2-hour group of music every couple nights or whatever, I think it would bring people in, and then you reminisce. So,
well, you know
Still,
what?
actually, there's a comment in the comments where the person said, "I'd rather hear a great sound system in my bar than a mediocre cover band." And I totally agree with that. Cover bands really bug me. And I'm not saying I don't want to hear new artists. I love new artists, but somebody playing, you know, 90s music or 80s music and not as well as the people who originally did it, what's the point?
Yeah, and coffee shops too. I just saw a comment, and it doesn't have to be bars or restaurants. I think a coffee shop is the perfect opportunity because it tends to be a little less raucous. You're not gonna have people talking over, you know, the music. So I think, you know, this is something that has been, you know, more popular in the UK, and you know, maybe it'll start popping up here in the US more. But you know what brings people to the happy hour is giveaways, and we're due for one right now. So why don't we treat somebody to an SB1000 Pro subwoofer, and then maybe we can talk about subwoofers for a minute afterwards. But the winner of our SB1000 Pro is one Mr. Lyle Biggs. Lyle Biggs, congratulations.
Hey, Lyle.
Mr. Biggs.
Congrats, Lyle.
Mr. Big. And somebody did ask earlier about the band I referenced earlier. It's not an easy name to remember. Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. I know Dennis and Brent are big fans too. So, you know, tune in. Get that on your playlist.
I just emailed it to myself so I don't forget it. I'm going to check them out.
That's right. Yeah. But I actually saw a funny a comment that come through, and I know you both are dog lovers. And somebody said, my dog keeps chewing up my speaker cables. Anything I can do about that? Is this a real world problem? Any recommendations, or have you dealt with this?
move your cables.
Maybe some hot sauce on there, or spray them with, you know, fox
Yeah,
urine. I don't know. It sounds like an opportunity, Gary. We might come up with a product like some sort of deterrent that you could spray on your cables there to keep the dogs away. Anyways, I don't think this is going anywhere. So
these guys are nodding blankly at this question. I think you've completely you've sucked all the air out of the room just now.
I did. I just knew they were dog lovers.
Yeah, go get some PVC pipe that's a little big, cut it, paint it, whatever. There's lots of things you can try.
Just for the record, we have SVS speakers. And back in the day, I actually needed a barber shop. I don't anymore. And we have SVS. Remember this, Nick? We put SVS speakers in our local barber shop, which is all about men in Frederick, Maryland. But I don't even go there anymore. But they wanted really good sound. They serve if you come in there to get your hair cut, they give you a beer, and they play. They like metal. They play metal.
Yeah, and we also had another bar put a PC 2000 cylinder subwoofer in the ceiling. A Primetime AV did that install. They hung a cylinder subwoofer from the roof, so you get a little bit better bass response. So, yeah, I think there's some momentum building there, hopefully. But on the topic of subwoofers, another thing you guys have talked about is this is an article I think, Brent, you wrote back in 2011. Was whether 1, 2, or 4 subwoofers was ideal, and now you have this Trinnov technology that is recommending like 25 subwoofers. So I'm just curious if you found in your experience with reviewing subwoofers, since both of you are very well versed in it, is there a perfect number, or what are sort of your takes on using multiple subwoofers?
I would to me they're as I said in that article, that's one thing, because all the Harman guys we're talking about how you should use 4 subwoofers and put them, in the centers of the walls or in the corners or something, and how it cancels out the room modes. And I actually had a reader that asked me, is it better to have 4 little subs, 2 medium subs, or 1 big sub? And I really didn't know. And so I built 7 subwoofers, 4 little ones, 2, because I had to kind of make them all the same. I couldn't get, it would be too hard to get that from a manufacturer, and I wanted to power them all with the same amplification and all that. And we did blind tests with all this stuff, and what we found was that definitely the more subs, the smoother the sound is. But 4 little subs are just not going to give you that big, powerful bass shake. And so it's kind of like if you care about sound for the whole family. I don't know anybody who actually does, but whatever. If you care about sound for the family, you can get multiple subwoofers. But if you just want good sound for you, you can get 1 big sub and EQ it for your position, and everybody else, they don't care anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think we get the questions all the time, even like having 3 and putting 1 near field to get sort of that butt kicker effect. So I think there's, it's really a matter of your room and, how you what you want to get out of the system.
Well, what we say is 2 reduces the number of room anomalies by something like 80%. That's a big step forward. I think it's very much diminishing returns beyond that. Not to say that, listen, I got 1 kid still in college, so they want to buy 3 or 4 or more. Great. But we typically will literally say, cut your budget in half and get 2 of the subwoofer that's half the price of what you were looking at. And, and you'd probably be better off.
Yeah,
I agree. And plus 2 is really easy to set up, whereas 4 is really hard to set up.
Yep.
And with 2, you can it's not real hard to equalize them and really get them nailed down. Whereas doing that with 4 subs is, if you don't have some kind of automatic thing, boy, I remember I did it with a manufacturer one time with a THX system, and we probably spent 3 hours working on those things. And then we hit the bypass button, and it sounded better with all the EQs off. So
wow,
it's
never know.
2, I think 2 is probably my overall average recommendation. I think Gary's 100% on target here.
Yeah, and we
I don't know what 20 does for you.
You don't
say
know
that
what?
again?
I don't know what 20 does for you other than give you lots of output.
Great for SVS. No, there was a lot of.
Well, you don't really
feedback.
add subwoofers for the horsepower. That's the part that I think people don't get. I mean, you add subwoofers to remove room anomalies, and I mean, if you're adding subwoofers because you don't have enough horsepower, you're probably not getting the right brand subwoofer. I'm not trying to be mean about it, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, but 20 though, I mean, 4 does
That is
job.
a lot.
20 is kind of like.
But you
I'm
can
not sure you really-
form the wave. Yeah.
Well,
no,
that
not
you just
sure
kind of
you really
recreate
need
your floor
that.
foundation, and you put a solid platform over each of those 20 subs, and that becomes your sub floor, no pun intended. And you kind of go from
well, that
there.
was definitely intended.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some fun stuff here.
Yeah, we did. Somebody did ask about having 2 different kinds of subwoofers. We've covered this a lot of times. So you just never want to mix ported and sealed, and you should generally keep it within the same brand, just because of how subwoofers are designed. You could do more harm than good if you're mixing 2 different brands and mixing ported and sealed. So try to always keep them as close together as possible with amplifier power and driver size, and within the same brand, and always the same cabinet design as well. So you guys are both very seasoned reviewers of speakers, subwoofers, and other audio gear. I think the idea of subjective versus objective observations comes into play quite a bit. And I'm wondering if you can just educate folks on sort of what your take on and what sort of helpful knowledge you can impart, based on
That's
trusting what others say.
What's your process in understanding excellence in a product? I think that's a great question.
It's a much less verbose way of asking.
No, I mean, I wanted to say it a certain way only because I admire both of the way these guys review, both of them, and there must be a rigorous process involved somehow.
Brent, do you want to take this one, or
Okay.
you
Gary, really
sound like
depends on the
Eeyore,
product.
man? Come on.
It depends on the product. I mean, it's pretty much always. I wish it wasn't rigorous, because I got a lot of stuff to test, but usually it ends up being rigorous. With speakers, for me, I always put them on and listen to them for a while casually, partly to make sure they're broken in. I don't think break-ins is anywhere near as big of a deal as people make it out to be, but I like to let the stuff play, and I like to kind of get my ears a little bit accustomed to them. But I really believe that I think if you look at someone, you guys have been around engineers and stuff, and engineers will go in, I do this too. Engineers will go in and listen to speakers, and they'll move their head back and forth, and they'll move their head up and down. And that tells you if they screwed the crossover up real fast, because if the crossover's not right, you're going to start to have beaming problems somewhere. And I think that even reviewers I don't like so much often get speakers right because the colorations are so easy to hear. But for me, it's a matter of doing those sort of simple things, putting some heavy bass through it, seeing what it can take, listening to voices and moving my head around to see if the dispersion's good. Playing, Dennis and I both have tons of recordings we play, and playing through my 5 or 6 recordings that tell me most of what I need to know. And then I throw it out in the backyard and do some measurements on it. But stuff that measures good, everything that measures good sounds good. Some stuff that measures bad still sounds pretty good.
Dennis, you want to weigh in, or did he articulate what you were thinking?
I mean, I don't review as many speakers. I do review a lot of amplifiers. And one of the things that I'm always trying to do is the thing is, with Soundstage in particular, I'll review a product, it'll go away. A couple of months later, it'll show up on the page, and that's the first time I've seen the measurements. But I talk about the measurements in the review because I will make predictions. This amplifier, I think, is probably either there's something wrong with the power supply, or the damping factor is not sufficient, or things like that. And in the discussion about those things, you try to sort of walk the reader through understanding why do these objective criteria matter, and what happens when they don't necessarily stack up. And it doesn't always mean good or bad. It just means, is this product right for this application? I reviewed a stereo receiver a while back that was, in terms of sound performance, amazing. And yet when I hooked it to my big 3-way towers and cranked the volume, it lost a lot of bass. Well, it just wasn't delivering enough current, right? And so I sort of talked about that, and somebody asked me, like, hey, this other amplifier, do you think it's got that same lack of bass? And I'm looking at the power supply going, no, it's probably fine, because the power supply, and he's like, I'm not talking about power supply. I'm talking about the bass. And I'm like, but no, that's what matters. And so I'm often trying to paint a line between objective measurement and subjective performance, and talk about why they're not as disconnected as a lot of people think they are.
Well, I think that gives some good advice for people who are, auditioning products, and, what to put their faith in, and how to weigh, these evaluations. Because,
But I think you guys are two of the best reviewers for a combination of rigor and also, I guess, subjective impressions. I enjoy both of your reviewing style. So
thank you.
People love your voice, Dennis. So I'm not going to make you sing for us, but hey, yeah, that's a compliment.
What was the comment? I couldn't read it.
Oh, it was.
You said you sound like Darth Vader, which I don't know if that's a compliment.
Darth Vader's brother. So that ties in nicely to what we were talking about earlier. So you guys have this podcast, and I want to ask, everyone's like, oh, what's your desert island album? I don't care about that. I want to know who your dream interview is. And it has to be somewhat relevant to the world of music, audio, home theater. Can't be like, Jesus, but who would you love to have on the podcast, alive or dead, from the world of audio, music, entertainment, something from that realm? And, what would be the one question you would ask him?
Brent wants
Can I go first, Brent? No.
Please.
No. So one of the first people to call me when we launched the podcast and congratulate me was my friend Sandy Gross. And he made the offer right then, like, anytime you want me on the podcast, just let me know. And I think for me, I've been kind of waiting until we get like bigger. So our audience numbers are up there to justify having Sandy Gross on the podcast. But that to me I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a dream.
Just for the record, Sandy's my friend too, and he's been on this show. And
he's one of our first guests. Yeah.
Well, we said to ourselves, we never wanted to make this about SVS. We wanted to make it about a celebration of great sound. So at that time, he was still president of Golden Ear. So he came on as a competitor, and we had a great time.
Yeah, we got deep into talking about quadraphonic sound, so it can go anywhere when we come.
With Sandy, it can go anywhere.
Yeah, which I thought I learned a lot that day. Brent, how about yourself?
I would say Taylor Swift, because if we had Taylor Swift on the show, our traffic would go up by a factor of like 10,000.
Very opportunistic.
We'd start making some money, But seriously, actually, that is serious. But seriously, folks, honestly, my dream guests my dream guests are all people we could get, but we just haven't gotten yet. I would like to get, and people who are, I mean, like everybody in the audio industry knows who Sean Olive is, but I would like to get Vance Dickinson, who wrote the Loudspeaker Design Cookbook and is the editor of Voice Coil magazine. I would like to get, I'd like to get Chris Struck, who's, I would argue, probably the top headphone consultant in the world from a science and engineering standpoint. I really like the guys who are the guys. I mean, I'm known as a technical person, but these guys are orders of magnitude more knowledgeable than me, and I just really, I can pick their brains. I mean, Vance and I talk every few months or so, and it's always like an hour or two, mostly me asking him questions. So I hope we'll get more guests on like that, people that are not as well known, but should be.
All right, well, those are some great suggestions, and I think you guys will have no problem hooking some of those up here down the line, and I'll be tuning in for sure. So I did want to just give you an opportunity if there's anything you want to close with, thoughts, promotion. I know you said you just finished recording your most recent podcast, and it's in editing now, but what sort of projects are coming down the pipeline? What can you tease the SVS community with?
Do we have any plans?
More bantering, just lots of bantering.
I mean, I think that's the thing a lot of people don't realize is we figure out what we're going to talk about literally like as we're about to start recording. Sometimes after we start recording, So a lot.
That's
of
why
this
it's great.
is just,
It's infectious. It's a great. You guys have done well with it.
Thanks.
Well, we greatly appreciate you joining, Dennis and Brent, and hopefully somewhere down the line we'll be able to have you on again. And we're always willing to chat whenever we get a chance. So keep up the awesome work. We'll keep listening. And if you haven't checked it out yet, Audio Unleashed podcast, just Google it. You'll find it on anywhere you will find your other podcasts. And again, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for joining us, Brent and Dennis. You guys are great.
Thanks, Larry.
All right. Well, we do owe one more giveaway, but a couple quick housekeeping items. I know there's a ton of awesome questions that came in here. We've been capturing as many as we can. So our next broadcast is going to be Thursday, December 21st, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern. And I think we'll just dedicate the majority of that to answering the question. It'll be an extended lightning round. I'll probably have some eggnog and wear a nice red and white festive hat since we'll be close to the holidays, but that's December 21st for the next Audiophile happy hour. As mentioned, our final giveaway of the evening is a pair of our Ultra bookshelf speakers with a set of our SoundPath Ultra by-wire speaker cable that's available now. And the winner of that grand prize is one Mr. Tony Mendenhall. Tony Mendenhall, congratulations. Tony. Got a nice set of bookshelf speakers coming your way. So check back with us on December 21st. Anything else, gentlemen, before we adjourn for the evening?
That was fun. Those guys are very engaging to listen to. And I checked out their podcast when I knew they were going to be on our show, and I thought it was just really a lot of fun. So
I love how they dive into the culture side of things. It's not just gear talk, which they get into too, but they have fun talking about the culture and some of the trivialities, but also the other things that make our hobby so much fun. So definitely check out their podcast and report back. Let us know what you think. So thanks everyone for joining. Happy listening. We will catch up with you in 2 weeks.
Bye everyone.
Everybody.